The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Good morning, family. Good morning. How you doing, Brother Ken?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Good morning, everybody.
This is the second episode. We're so grateful you all joined us for the first episode, the inaugural episode of the Legacy Play with Ken and Ahmed. And so now in episode 2, right, we're going to bring that to you live and direct. I'm here with Ken Bradshaw of Bradshaw Wealth Advisors and Insurance. And then again, shameless plug on myself, Silo Legacy Development. And again, it's the Legacy Play.
Absolutely. I love that legacy play because it speaks to so many different, when you think about people and you think about couples and business owners, legacy is a key piece of their, why they're doing the investing and why they're doing the planning.
Absolutely.
It's related to their legacy.
Absolutely. And so today, I know that we wanted to touch on a few important topics, and so we're going to keep this thing very, very concise. So when we have conversations or private conversations with clients who want to better understand, participate in, and protect their financial lives, oftentimes they're successful folks, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And they tend to delegate financial responsibilities to someone, whether it be a spouse or an advisor like ourselves or an accountant or family office. That's not really a problem. In fact, delegation is often one of the reasons successful people become successful. They focus on what they do best and rely on qualified professionals to support them, which is great. However, there's an important distinction that deserves the attention. Delegation is not the same thing as disengagement. Do you agree with that, my brother?
I totally agree with that. Two separate entities. And, the engagement piece, which you brought up, is so critical so that families and business owners start to work towards reaching their goals and understanding when they are successful and they are growing, why they're growing. So, absolutely.
Give us an idea, Ken, on when a client decides, right, when they make the active decision to engage an advisor, right? And more so, delineate between just advisor and fiduciary and kind of that initial process that a client goes through once they begin in that first client meet.
Okay, great question. And I'll first take your earlier distinction when you talk about fiduciary versus maybe a financial professional or an advisor. So a fiduciary by law has to work in the client's best interest. So when we meet, I know you asked me about what that looks like. So when a client comes in, and I will say, here's a client that was a referral, and maybe that referral has worked with me. They worked with this new client at their employer and knew them for years. And this is a very important time in their lives because let's just say this particular client is approaching retirement. That may be 10 years away. It might be 3 years away. It might be next year. But when they walk in for that meeting, we're going to have what I call a discovery meet, right?
Okay.
And so what I mean by discovery is I want to understand that particular client, what their goals are, whether it's, hey, I'd like to visit my grandkids when I retire. When I retire, I'd like to do a good bit of travel. I'd like to play golf. Whatever those key elements are, those are going to be documented as we go through that discovery phase. And in that discovery phase, they're getting to know me and understanding me. They're understanding what we do. We're going to document some things. And really, Ahmed, we're going to start with, once I understand kids, grandkids, what's important, and we start looking at, hey, are we prepared for retirement?
All right.
So I'm going to start that conversation with an agenda. And in that agenda, we're going to have things such as a roadmap to retirement. And that roadmap might talk to me about, do you own your home? Yes. Do you have a mortgage? Yes or no? Whatever those key elements of their lives are, I want to sort of understand. I want to understand the expenses. right?
Yes.
I'd like to also understand when they want to retire, how they would like to retire. And then those conversations sort of evolve to explaining to them the accumulation phase versus the distribution phase. And so I'll take some time to break that down. When you're working and you're 40 years old, you're 35 years old, you're 50 years old, and you're putting money into a 401k, an IRA, a Roth IRA, that's your accumulation phase. You're accumulating assets that in retirement, you're trying to create a runway so that you have what's called a predictable income,
Got it.
right? And so I'm going to try to understand, the accumulation phase. What have you done? Let's take, you're going to provide maybe a statement from your 401k or other assets that you might have. It's very common for me to ask for a social security statement. You've heard me talk about this SSA.gov, where you can go out and you can get your social security number. So you understand if I take social security at 62 or 63, what does that number represent? We're going to talk about a time horizon. Like I may be meeting with you and you're 3 years away from retirement, you're 10 years away, but I'm going to start to help you plan for that. So you're taking the proper steps so that we know what that predictable income will be. And Ahmed, we'll do things like an income worksheet. I do want to explain that. And so I'm sitting with the client and they explain to me, hey, I have a 401k, but I also have maybe a pension through my job,
Which is
or
rare.
which is rare. It is rare, but some do have it. Or you're finding more and more we're dealing with veterans who have veteran disability income. So I want to understand that particular client, both spouses, let's say it's a married couple, everyone is engaged. This is a team sport. So we're all sort of sharing. And through that process, and when I'm talking to them in that meeting, we're going to go through an income worksheet. I'm going to start to understand where they have guaranteed income. And then I'm also going to understand what amount of income do they need in retirement? Like, what does it cost for them to live? And you can't always give an exact number, but in our role as fiduciaries, we specialize in being able to look at your expenses, being able to look at your current assets, whatever guaranteed income you have, to sort of have a predictable view of what retirement looks like.
Okay, so in that delegation, right? Because it sounds to me, oftentimes, and we've talked about this, clients have different. I'll call them partners or teammates. I
Yes,
like
sir.
I like the
Yes,
way
sir.
your approach on that. When they have these individuals, these professionals, their accountant, the advisor,
Yes, sir.
the attorney, right? So when you put all these pieces together, is there a difference between, or can you explain the difference between delegation and dependence? Meaning, delegation, I understand what's happening and I know it's responsible, versus I assume everything is fine. I don't know how decisions are made and things kind of get out of control. How do you keep the client engaged?
No, that's a great question. And I want to go back before I address that. You asked earlier about when you meet with these clients in that initial meeting. And Ahmed, that meeting might be 2 or 3 separate meetings before we actually start investing and moving into the phase of putting their financial planning pieces in place. But going back to your earlier question about the team. So when we're meeting, I'm asking questions such as, have you addressed estate planning, right? Has that been a
Right.
topic? And sometimes it has been, or maybe a partial step has been made, but maybe it's not complete. Or some people haven't addressed it at all. So one of the things that I'm going to encourage is that needs to be a major play, or something that you want to have as a priority. If they have a estate attorney, great. If they don't have one, we'll talk about putting that in place, because effectively, I, I'm basically a quarterback, right? So I'm going to help them outline what retirement looks like.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But the estate planning is a key piece, right? A trust, a will, a healthcare surrogate, all those things that are specific to your needs. We want to have something in place and on that side of the aisle. And then on the tax professional side as well, as your assets grow, you need professional advice. But I think where you were headed with your question is one of the roles that we play as fiduciaries when we're meeting with our clients
Yes, break that down.
is we want to have a whole footprint in front of us. We want to understand what's important to that client. The estate planning is in place. The accountant is in place. And now when those professional relationships are in place, I'm communicating with the estate planner. I'm communicating with the tax professional because the more we work together on your behalf, the better your outcomes look down the road.
Right, they become predictable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is interesting too. I got some questions that came in prior to this episode, and this is one of the questions, and I believe that it'd be great if you can answer this, and I'll chime in as well. Sometimes when you're having the meetings or when we're having the meetings, the client has a portfolio or relationship somewhere, right?
Yes.
However, there's something driving them to maybe make a different choice or decision. Okay, we appreciate that opportunity to have that dialogue. Every now and then, there's the question of, do I have to move all of my assets now? Or perhaps you can help me with just the planning. How does that look from a practice standpoint? Is that doable?
Absolutely is. And just to sort of restate what you said, I think what you're asking is me as a financial planner, you as a financial planner. Obviously, when we meet with clients, we talk about preparing for retirement, many of the things that I just spoke about a few minutes ago.
Correct.
However, there's also the element of business where someone walks through the door and says, "Hey, I really don't have assets, or maybe I do have assets, but I'd like to get your advice. I'd like to meet with you. And I know you're a fiduciary, and I'd like to talk to you about certain topics. Maybe I'd like to purchase my own business, or maybe I have some other goals and I want to make sure that I have a good process in place and a strategy to reach those goals." So, to your point, yes, we can meet with clients in a financial planning engagement meeting, and it's a meeting for a fee. We'll talk to you about what your goals are, whether it's a business owner or whether it's an individual. And we're happy to meet with you as fiduciaries to help you map out what your goals are and help you accomplish those goals as a separate entity. And you can do that in a one time setting if you'd like. Or let's say you have some goals that over the next 5 years, you really need a higher level of financial planning consultation. We can put you on a subscription as a monthly fee and be that financial planning engagement company that helps you reach those goals.
So this seems like this is kind of where the industry is going, or maybe it already started, right? Whereby your engagement is isolated or compartmentalized based on what the client's trying to accomplish. It may not always mean that, yeah, it's the portfolio driving the engagement or the conversation. It may mean, yes, that's part of it. However, to your point, Ken, I have a business I want to start. I've been approached by a private placement investment, meaning it's not a publicly traded company. Maybe it's a winery. Maybe it's someone has a startup and you know them. So you have that component. Then it's, I have kids in college or approaching college. There are a myriad of components that may be there, and so I wanna focus on putting those pieces together. I wanna delegate if I'm the client, I
Yes.
wanna delegate those things to a professional. I wanna stay involved in that process as much as I need to be. Help me with that. Give me an idea, Ken, about the reporting because I think that's gonna be important and as a part of the education of a new client. We both know and probably agree, I would imagine, most clients that are in or most participants in 401(k) programs, right? These are employer-sponsored programs. How often do you think they really look at their statements?
Many of them don't look at the statements often. And so, it's interesting as we have this podcast today, and we're talking about financial planning and the different ways that we engage clients. Here's something else that I found out, Amit. A lot of times when I'm meeting with clients, either in a financial planning engagement, whether it's a one-time meeting for a fee or a subscription meeting for a fee, or going back to Normally, when we're meeting with clients, we're managing their retirement and all their financial elements of their life. What I found in any of those settings is many people will say to me, "Hey, you guys are really in depth, like the way you do your meetings." Because keep in mind, you talked about the initial meeting. That initial phase, I would call it, might be 3 meetings, depending on the
Right,
complexity
right.
of
That's
who
what you're
you're
saying.
talking
You're
with.
going to break it down.
Right. But here's the thing. I found that have said to me, "You know what? Now that I'm working with you, this is awesome because I've never seen this laid out with me understanding what my income is going to look like, me understanding my emergency fund, and just the different elements of the financial planning piece, insurance planning, etc." Whereas they've said, even though I had assets in a different space, no one really spoke with me. No one really spoke with me about those assets in a different space.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So now when we get through and determine what the engagement's really going to be, what the engagement's going to be, I've found right throughout the career that I've been serving clients, and I know you can attest to this as well. There's a distance that takes place, and let me frame it this way: no matter how successful, there's only so much time, right? Time is the great equalizer. It's the asset we can never get back.
Correct.
So if you're hyper successful, you're probably hyper busy, right? Meaning you need a team, you need a group that can help you, that can execute, keep you in that loop, but execute at a high level so that you have your time because that's so valuable. When that happens, oftentimes there can be and we said it earlier, there can be a distance that takes place, and distance can create vulnerability. What does that mean? I'm so glad you asked. So, when one becomes vulnerable in terms of where they are financially on all of the things that are not necessarily connected to how they create the value, you can somewhat forget about what's going on, right?
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
And so I know that, as a part of process in the industry, there are gonna be meetings, there are gonna be reviews, etcetera. I think almost everyone would say that they agree on that. I think as we move forward, whether it be with AI, whether it be, in other ways, how can we keep, and I'm gonna add a variable to it, how can we keep the clients not just engaged, as we said, but keep them in the loop at a rate that they appreciate and at a cost level that makes sense?
So no, great questions. One of the things I think I'm compelled to share is part of our process that's offered to clients is something called full discretion investment strategy. And so what that is here's a client that walks into me, and this client might have multiple different uh, retirement accounts. He might have some insurance policies, and he's definitely looking at a higher level of investing, which is why they're walking in to meet with the fiduciary. So we're meeting, we put a plan in place. They're highly engaged, they like the plan. But to your point, they're very successful, right? They're working, they're busy at work.
Yeah,
And so in my role, what I try to convey to clients is once we get the plan put in motion, I'll manage the plan. So part of the full discretion scenario is we're managing these accounts. We're purchasing new investments. We're moving old investments off the table, and there's no commission to do that. Okay.
got it.
Once they get involved and they have that fee that they pay as a financial planner, and typically we're around 1%, and we manage everything. And I want to be clear on that. When we say at 1%, we manage everything, there may be 3 or 4 accounts outside of, our initial investment with my current broker-dealer. We're still looking at the statements for those things, so it's a part of our overall strategy. So with this particular client, they don't have to be involved in everything that happens next week or the following week because A, they're gonna have access to look at this on their electronic strategies, whether it be their
Right.
cell phone, computer, just like you would look at a bank account,
Okay.
right? So you're going to have that. You're going to also have a statement that will be sent to you that can be electronic or you can have it in the mail. Then you're going to have access to our team to where from time to time you may say, "Hey, Ken, I had a question about a tax strategy." And, we're not tax professionals. However, we have people within our team that we're going to make sure that we manage correctly. So just going back to that full discretion, it gives you the opportunity to live your life, know that you have a financial planner that has your best interests at heart. They're growing. They're going to share with you how this account is growing when we have our quarterly meetings. So I really feel like that's a great way for people to have a long term strategy that's helping them reach their financial goals, yet they're able to live their lives and not be involved in every decision.
So I appreciate you answering that question that way because you really touched on something in an area where I was going with that, which is the goal is not to manage every account per se, right? The
Right.
goal is to remain engaged enough to understand the direction of the client's financial life. It can be a simple framework. In those quarterly or those semi-annual or even annual conversations, when that discussion takes place, there are certain questions that are asked. And so I know from the back of my mind, we tend to ask, what has changed since our last discussion? What opportunities are we currently pursuing? What risks should we be aware of? Or what major decisions are coming up? Or is there anything I should better understand? Those questions are there in order to really fine tune what we've already done from a planning perspective
Absolutely.
because life continues to move on. And so in that discussion, I think it's healthy to figure out a way if and maybe you've seen this happen as well over time to kind of get that or drag that out of a client, right? Because maybe they're not even in front of us at the time, but in the relationship dynamic, we go through discovery phase and try to figure out some of those answers intuitively, right, as we move along that trajectory of relationship.
Absolutely. And that's great. I'm glad you brought that up because that's absolutely correct. And when we meet, I think you hit all the topics, what's changed in your life and things change, right?
Yeah,
Things change.
of course.
And so we're gonna implement those changes into our plan, as fiduciaries and financial professionals, we'll have new strategies that we can talk about. We'll share those with you and we want you to understand things at a higher level and not only understand them at a higher level from time to time clients change course, something else becomes important,
Yes.
right? And so it's our role to get involved to say, hey, let's look at the best way to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, right? We're going to do it, take a look back when we do our meetings. And some clients, and by the way, here's a good thing to point out as well. A lot of times, I've had clients, like right now I have some clients in New York and they were referred to me by other clients that I have in New York. And they said, man, I didn't realize, I could work with you and you're based in Florida. And so we have the capacity because of our licensing, no matter where you live, we can address those particular needs. And oftentimes we work with clients in other states outside of Florida simply because we can do virtual meetings. Everything is electronic.
I was gonna ask you, how do you close that distance,
Right,
right?
right. But, quite frankly, oftentimes when I have client meetings with Florida residents that live 20 minutes away, they choose virtual simply because we've established a foundation, we've established a rapport over time. They love the plan. They like the way that we administer, how we're growing their assets and how we're, attentive to them and reaching out to them. And they might just say, hey, you know what? I'm working today. I'd love to do a virtual meeting, which gives them that flexibility and they still have all the information they need at their disposal. So that's available to them.
Do you think that came out of, what we went through with COVID? Do you think that's what really triggered that maybe?
I think that's a big part of it. Um, I think another part of it is we're at a point now, and we don't think about it oftentimes, but we bring in a lot of referrals. A lot of clients will say, "Hey, could you talk to my?" I just had a before we had this podcast. As you know, I was on a Zoom meeting. It was a client review, and the client said to me in that meeting, "Hey, I'd like for you to speak with my partner. Is it okay?" Absolutely. So the client brought the partner into the room
On the Zoom.
on the Zoom.
Okay.
And the partner said, "Hey, I have a 401k and I just needed some advice." And I went over it and broke it down. And she was like, that's amazing. I gave her the different options and we're going to set up another virtual meeting. So, going back to your point, I definitely think that COVID, opened up a lot of different thought processes. But I also think that because we've been in this business for a very long time, there's clients that started with 1 or 2 accounts that now have 8 or 9 accounts,
Oh
right?
my gosh,
Or
it's
they
been, what is it,
referred a brother or whatever it is.
20 years. I think
Right, right.
20 years. This, as a matter of fact, for me, 20 years, certainly this November, in this industry. And it's gone by. It's gone by. But I'm excited, right? I'm
Oh, yeah.
excited about what is in front of us, what we're working on. Again, using AI as a tool. How do we do that effectively? How does that engage clients? Give us greater outcomes that are more predictable, right? And when I think about, understanding the overall picture or knowing how decisions are made or knowing who's involved, and I'm speaking as if I'm the client, right?
Right.
I want to know these things, and so can I step away or step in as I need to and feel informed rather than dependent? And do I have the awareness that creates confidence in what we're doing? If I'm the client, I think I want those things, and we've articulated how to go about those
Right.
things, and we just have to continue to do that and educate as we move forward.
And let me say this too, Ahmed. One thing I don't wanna miss, and, one of my clients pointed this out to me because they listened to our previous podcast.
Okay.
People are listening to the language we're using right now, the flow we're using, and trying to just envision their lives. And oftentimes, many people have not taken the step to bring a fiduciary into the process. They think it's way too expensive or they're not sure how to move forward. It is not expensive. And the other piece of it is it will really help you organize your life and understand where you want to go, where it's documented. A professional is going over this information periodically with you, and you have that trusted advisor, not just for the meeting today or next week or next month, but as we go forward, you're going to have other questions. Maybe you have a question about your employer sponsored plan at work, or you have a question about how does life insurance work? We specialize in all these different areas that fall under the financial planning topic.
Excellent, excellent, brother Ken. So this is again episode 2, the legacy play with Ken and Ahmed, and we're going to pass the mic to the next episode, right? We want everyone to be safe, be productive, and I want to leave a reflection question, right, to our audience, to our listeners. If you needed to explain your household's financial structure to a trusted friend tomorrow, could you? That's a question. And if you can't do that, then the objective is not perfection, the objective is progress. So let's all get ourselves together on one accord.
Ahmed, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
apologize for interrupting. Could you ask that question one
Oh,
more
for
time?
sure. If you needed to explain your household's financial structure to a trusted friend tomorrow, could you do that? And if not, the objective is not perfection, the objective is progress.
I love it. I love it. And listen, for everybody who joined us, keep listening. We love what we do. We love what we do. This is the Legacy Play with Ken and Ahmed. I'm Bradshaw Wealth Advisors and Insurance. And Ahmed, tell them who you are.
And you know me, I'm Ahmed Stevens, Silo Legacy Development. We are doing this thing. We are brothers in this fight, and we're
Yes,
going to
sir.
continue to push forward. God bless.
God bless you.